All right, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all, and I hope that you have had a good Thanksgiving with whoever you have been with over the last several days or over the last week. Just a show of hands, how many of you prepared food in order to poison someone you ate with? Maybe not intentionally, okay? Maybe you didn't want to poison them. Maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe you really didn't like someone you were sitting with, so you prepared something just especially for them, like the pie that has no sugar in it and has twice as much salt as what the sugar called for, and you made sure and served that to them. Anybody? No, nobody did that either. Maybe you brought everyone to your home, and to show them how disappointed you were with them, you made it the worst version of everything possible. No? Okay, I know this is lighthearted, but as we start to read through this passage in Matthew chapter 7, that's essentially what we would be doing if we were doing the opposite of what Christ was telling his disciples and the people that were gathered to hear this message. He goes, look, even all of you sinners, even you evil people, even you people who aren't of God, you understand that you would do the right thing for people in a general sense, right? Someone comes over to your house, even if you don't like them, you're going to serve them good food, right? You want them to walk away with some sort of positive impression. Maybe you want to, even if it's like the worst version of this, you want to show them up. You want to do the right thing even when they haven't done the right thing all this time. We understand that. But Jesus is going to ask us to look a little bit deeper than that baseline level. Even as much as we may understand that at a Thanksgiving meal, we're still going to prepare our best. We're going to give them good food. We're not going to intentionally try to slide something bad to them. Even if it was as they're getting their plate and they look away, you take a whole thing of red chili flakes and dumped it on it or something. We wouldn't do that to somebody. Most of the time. Let's be honest here, okay? Jesus is talking to a wide audience. There may be that one person who's like, no, you don't know me. I would go above and beyond to make sure I did the worst thing possible for my enemy, for the person who slighted me, whatever it may be. But in general, Jesus says, in general, all you people who may hear my voice in that sermon, all you people who are going to be reading these words thousands of years later, you understand that in general, even evil people know how to do the right thing on a regular basis. And what he's going to point out is if we understand that baseline level, how much more will our God in heaven provide for us? How much richer are his blessings? How much more amazing are the things that we can't even begin to imagine that he will provide for us? And it's a wonderful thing as I consider this message. Jacob laid out to the kids about asking, seeking, and knocking, and we're going to look at those things here in just a moment. But those were not new concepts to the people who were hearing Jesus' message. This wouldn't have been the first time that they had read the words of God or heard the words of God spoken to them, where they were encouraged to ask after something, or to seek after something, or to knock and find the way made ready for them. This was something that God, throughout this history of his people, he had told them, seek after me, ask for good things and I'm going to give them to you. Even in the psalm we just read, Lord, I need protection. And all of a sudden you find yourself encamped around and protected. Ask good things of me and they will be provided to you. Ask for my salvation. Ask for my way to be made known to you, and that's what will be provided. God has had that consistent message throughout the pages of the Bible. Even in my Judges class that I'm teaching, how many times will we read throughout the pages of just that one book of the Judges that when the people called on his name, he answered their prayers? When they are at their lowest, when they have left him utterly and completely, when they are fully oppressed and depressed, and they are following after other gods, and finally they awaken to this isn't the right thing, and they call on the name of the Lord, guess what? He hears them. He answers their cries. He provides for them. And the fun thing is when you read through the book of Judges, he provides in some very humorous ways sometimes, some very unexpected ways, but he provides for his people. because God hears us. And I want to start with our end, and I want you to know that he still hears you today. I want you to be assured that God still wants good things for those who seek after him. That's where we're going to end, but I want you to know that up front. Because so often there's many things that let us down, that we're hurt by, things that break, things that disappear. But these things that we're going to discuss today are things that do not disappear, that do not change, that God will not change his promise to fulfill these things. Okay? So that's the firm foundation we get to start on, and we'll get to end with that. And then we're going to close by singing Blessed Assurance, Jesus is Mine. All right? So this is a message of hope and of thanksgiving today. But now let's open up to Matthew. And we had the passage read from chapter 6. Specifically, the passage that we're really looking at is in chapter 7, but it ties together so many other things. So let's just read this, chapter 7, verses 7 through 11. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, the one who knocks, it will be opened. Or which of you, if his son asks him for bread, would give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, would give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? So this morning, the first question is just, what do you want? What do you want when you're talking to God? Because at its root, this is a message about prayer. What are you talking to God about? What are you praying to him for? What are your heart's desires? Jacob asked the kids about Christmas presents, and I'm sure that's going to be on a lot of people's minds. What are the things you want? We're coming up to the close of the year. Do you wish you had more money in your bank account? Do you wish your house didn't have that leak that you just can't seem to plug up? Do you wish that you had a little bit more of this or of that, a newer this, a newer that, something that was more reliable than the car you already have or the job you already have? All of these are things that we tend to focus on and can be the main asks and wants that we have. And it's only natural that when we read a passage like this where it says, well, ask God and he'll give it to you, we read into it, ask God for a new motorcycle and it'll show up on Christmas. Ask God for the new job and you're guaranteed to get it. It's natural to read that in because that's how we as humans tend to function. But I'm telling you, that's not the message of this passage. Now, we're going to come back to some of these worldly things that we read in our passage just a moment ago from just slightly earlier in chapter 6. But for now, what is Jesus telling the people that are listening then and reading today? What is he saying to ask for? What is he saying to seek after? What is he saying to knock and some sort of door will be open to you? And that answer is scattered again throughout his words. He constantly tells us what to ask for, and it's illuminated just a little bit more in Luke. So if we have here the Luke 11:13 that's up on the screen, it's almost word for word the same verse there in Matthew. And it's seek all these different things and ask for these things. But instead of just saying ask and good things will be given to you, it says specifically ask and the Holy Spirit will be given to you. So what is a good thing in the eyes of Christ? What is a good thing from our Father? And the basic answer is a good thing is his Spirit within us. His Spirit that we spent so much time looking into a couple of years ago, where we explored the fruit of the Spirit. The love, the joy, the peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. All of these things that work within us are the core of what God's good gifts are. He says when you're praying to God and you're expecting good to come in your life, this is what you should be focused on. Are you asking for his peace? Are you asking for his patience? Are you asking for the ability to be more gentle in your life? Are you asking for true goodness to be what is at work within you? These are the things that if you ask for them, they will never be withheld from you. Ask and the Holy Spirit is given. This is the key to understanding and clarifying what good things are. John 15:7, Jesus tells us another thing, that when we're asking for these things, it's this verse that, again, kind of gets pulled out sometimes. And it says, ask whatever you wish of Jesus, and it will be done for you. But they're missing that beginning part of the verse. Here's the whole thing, John 15, verse 7. If you abide in me, again, this is Christ speaking. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. What are we supposed to be asking? We're asking that God's word abides in us and we abide in Christ. And if we fully understand that and are bound to that and striving after it each and every day, what would we ask for that would be outside of our relationship with Him? What would be our highest goal if we have His word abiding in us outside of serving Him? If we have Him in us and our word, if we are in Him and His word is in us, our asks will always be in line with Him. John kind of likes that line of thinking, and he brings it up again in one of his later letters in 1 John chapter 5, verse 14. He said, here's your confidence. If you're wondering if when you talk to God, if He hears you, if you're wondering about the things that you ask for, if they will be fulfilled, he says, this is the confidence that we have towards Him, that if we ask anything according to His will, He will hear us. So again, this isn't asking for the latest and greatest fill in. This is going, God, I'm seeking after your will. I'm seeking your will to be done. I want to know you more. I want more at work in my life. Lord, help me to be closer to you. And God says, I will never not hear that message. I will always be close to you. I will always provide those blessings. I will always provide that path. I will always hear when you call on me. Because the greatest of good gifts are going to be the gifts from my Spirit. They are going to be my words. They are going to be my will. So keep asking. I'm never going to do those things. So what are we asking for? That's what we're asking for. We're asking for God's Spirit, His will, His way to be something that we see, we participate in, we grow closer to, and we become more like each and every day. That's what we're asking for. And so then you say, okay, well, that's what we ask about. So what do we seek after? Is it the same stuff? Well, kind of, yeah. But there again, we go back into that first passage we read in chapter 6. Seek first, and we even sang it, His kingdom and His righteousness. So now, what am I searching for? What am I trying to get closer to? Where's my path leading me as I walk each and every day? That's where I'm headed. I'm seeking after His kingdom, not my own kingdom. My household's kingdom, not my city kingdom, not my state kingdom, not my nation kingdom. Kingdom is what I am seeking after each and every day. I'm seeking after the King who will lead me, the one who will guide me, the one who will rule me. I'm seeking after the actions He wants me to do. I'm seeking after the good He wants to provide to all people who are in this kingdom. And how do I do all of that? By seeking His righteousness as well. The kingdom may be the end goal. The righteousness is part of what gets me there. Righteousness is a relationship between you and God, between you and man. It is the right actions that you will take. It's all of the right things that God has called on us to do. And so we're saying, God, please provide these things in my life so that as I walk this path, I can reach your kingdom and serve in your kingdom. Your righteousness will change me from the inside, and it will prepare me for what you have called me to do. And I will never stop looking for those things. People seek their whole life after what their life is supposed to be, who their true self is, what was the plan for their life. And God is saying, seek after my righteousness. Seek after my kingdom, and it will set all of those other things in view. It will illuminate them clearly. It may not be what you planned. It may not be what your parents had planned around you, but if you seek after me, I will make clearly what I have planned for you. Service in my kingdom. A life filled with my Spirit. A life of service that may be very different to everyone else around you, but it's service to me and me alone. And again, these are not new things. These are things that God has called of His people since the beginning of time. He literally created Adam and Eve, and He said, this is what I want you to do. And as long as they were following Him, they were in His path. When things went awry, you had all of these other people that started going their own way. And there was a remnant who would decide, okay, I'm going to follow Christ, I'm going to follow God. And He would call them back to Him, and He would provide for them and care for them. And that same story plays out over and over. Who were the people seeking after God? Who were the people who were not? And God says, even when you mess up, fail, even when you don't follow me properly, if you are seeking after me, I will still provide the good things I had in store for you. I mean, just take the greatest of examples when you have Moses and the Israelites start wandering in that wilderness. How many times did they fail God? How many times did they let Him down? And yet His good promise of providing for them never failed. They were seeking after Him in a very, very poor manner. But God cared for them. And God provided His promises just as He told them He would. So for us, sometimes we can go, oh, but God, I'm not seeking you well today. I'm not seeking you well right now. Maybe I start asking for the wrong things and we start to worry about all of those. But God says, if you're seeking after me, even imperfectly, my promises are still for you throughout all time, throughout all ways. So we're seeking after Him. We want to reach His kingdom. We want His righteousness to fill our lives. We've asked for all of these things to be filling us, changing us, providing for us, and now we've reached that door. And now the question is, what are we going to do when we get to the door? Jacob, what are you going to do when you get there? Well, you're going to knock. But can you imagine the foolishness of reaching a door, something you have sought after, something you have worked for, something that has changed within you so that you could reach that spot and then simply walking away? Maybe sitting down and going, well, destination, this was a great trip. These are the things that are absurd to us. But if you think about how many times we have asked for God's good gifts, and filled with them, or the opportunity has been provided, or we have had this growth happening within us, and now we get there and we go, you know what, God, I'm really not game for what you're calling me to at this point. God, I'm thankful for the patience you've given me, but I'm going to set it on my shelf and I'm going to look at it as a trophy, and then when it comes for me to be patient, I'm just going to leave that there. God, I'm so thankful for all the things that you have provided for me, and I'm so richly blessed at this point. And God, thank you for those things. I see the opportunity to share. I'm going to keep my stuff. Thank you very much. That's the equivalent of walking up to this door and knocking on it, or choosing not to knock it, or sitting down, or walking away, or whatever it may represent. That's what Jesus is saying. Look, when you have the good things from God within you, when you have asked for these things, when they have filled you, when you have sought after them, the natural expression is to do something with it, to put it into work, to put it into action. Not because it's going to gain you anything else, but because, of course, why wouldn't you? Jesus says this to His followers a little bit later in the book of Matthew. In Matthew chapter 25, He's setting the scene of that final judgment. He says, look, there's going to come a time when everyone is going to be called to me. I'm going to look at them, and I'm going to separate them. And I'm going to say the same things to them. I'm going to say, you saw me hungry. You saw me naked. You saw me without clothes. You saw me in prison. And to one, I'm going to say, and you served me. They may not understand that it was Jesus they were serving, but he says, that's what you did. You took the good things that had been entrusted to you, the good things that you had asked for, the good things that changed you from the inside, and you put them into action. Come into eternal rest. To others, he's going to say, and you did nothing with it. You turned them aside. So whether they had ever asked for the good things or they had spurned the good things from the beginning, they don't receive the rest. They never knocked at the door. They never went through the door, whereas these others had. James, when he's writing to people and he's telling them about faith, he says, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? He's saying you believed God would give it to you. Maybe you even asked for it, but what have you done with it? Brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food. It's almost like James knew what Jesus had said earlier here. And one of you says, go in peace, be warm, without giving them the things that were needed in the body. What good is it? So also is faith by itself. If it does not have works, it is dead. James says, look, if you're just asking for the stuff and then keeping it for yourself, if you're seeing the need for it in your life but you don't put it into action, it's not real faith. That's the equivalent of going up to the door and then turning away. That's the equivalent of seeing the need for it, desiring it in your life, but then doing nothing. What was the point? There was no point in any of this. You didn't really believe it. You didn't really understand it. You didn't do something with it that would really have changed your life. It was a word only. It wasn't in deed. It hadn't really sunk in. Because the natural outcropping of someone who has sought after Christ is to then do something with it. The kingdom is not a place we find a seat in and sit still. The kingdom is an active and vibrant place. And so when we start thinking about that initial, what do we want? Do we want the good things of God? Do we want to be active in His kingdom? Do we want to be changed? Which means it will be different. It will be uncomfortable. It may call us into some unexpected places. Or do we want to set that aside? Say thanks but no thanks. Or I'd like it my way, please God. What are we asking for? Have we, or are they still kind of a misty idea off in the distance? Now, before we continue, because I said this is going to end on great hope and assurance, okay? But I want you to have a moment, because sometimes we roll in on this, and it's really easy in this moment to go, oh yeah, of course I want all this. But I want you to have a moment to think on these things. Do you really ask God on a regular basis for His Spirit, His will, His Word? Do you seek His kingdom and His righteousness, or are you asking and seeking after a multitude of other things that have gotten in the way? And when you do ask for those, are you keeping your eyes open for the doors that may be presented to you? Have you actually walked up to them, knocked, preparing to go into God's kingdom, preparing to go through to the opportunities He's providing? Or are you choosing to either shut your eyes to them or walk away from them? So this is about our prayer life. When we talk to God, what are we focusing on? So again, I want us to take a moment. I want to give it about 2 minutes. And I want you to ask that question of yourself and maybe take a moment to talk to God before we continue this morning. know life gets busy. And I know life can be very distracting. So that's why it's important to take moments like this. But I hope this isn't the only moment you take this week, maybe even today, to think about these things. Because the world is bombarding us with things that we should be focused on, with things to ask for, with things to seek after. But these are the important things. These are the things that guide us and that ground us to provide a way forward through anything that comes against us. The good, the bad, the ugly. So these are the things that Jesus is looking at his disciples and he's saying, keep these at the forefront of your mind. Seek these first. Ask of these things every time you speak to the Father. Because these are the things that are provided. And why? Why? Why would there be this promise of assurance? And the answer to that is because it's God. Why would he hear us? Because he's our God and our Creator. Why would he care for us? Because he's our God and Creator. Why would he give these promises? Because he promised them. Why would he bother fulfilling them even when we have failed him? Because that's what he said he would do. He is the God who gives all good things. He is the God who has promised over and over that no matter what we are going through, when we are seeking after him, he would provide. And here's how he states it at the end of both the passages we've looked after. They're in Matthew 6:33. And all of these things will be added to you. He just got through saying, look, you're worried about all of this stuff. And I know that you're worried about your food and your drink and your clothes. But isn't life more than food and drink? Isn't the body more than clothes? God cares for the birds of the air. He cares for the grass of the fields. How much more you, knowing all the story of his people, you who I breathed life into, you who I cared for when you were kicked out of the garden, you who I cared for as you wandered the wilderness, you who I cared for while in captivity, you I cared for while you sinned against me and you caused my son to be on the cross, you I care for. So if you're seeking after me, if you're taking care of asking for the good things and you're wanting those to be in your life, guess what? I will take care of all these other things that you may be concerned about. All the necessities of life, I have them in store for you. Now, who knows how that's going to take shape? It could take shape in multitudes of ways, in unexpected ways, but God promises he will care for them. Who knows that maybe one of the doors we're knocking on is an opportunity to move forward, is a prayer that someone else has been asking for. And they've been going, God, I need you to care for me in this moment. And you're one of the people who God is saying, you know what, you've been asking to serve, here's your opportunity. God can work out multitudes of things because he is God and he will provide all these things. And then there at the end of the chapter, or the passage we've been reading in chapter 7, how much more? If we who are evil know how to give good gifts as we see good gifts, how much more does God know the good that we truly need in our life? That is the God we serve. That is the assurance we have that God truly will bless us in the ways that matter the most, that go the deepest, that last the longest, that will never fail us from here to eternity. How much more? That is our assurance. That when everything else fails, everything else breaks, everything leaves us behind, everything disappoints us, God will not be that person. God will not be the one who lets one of his promises fail. God is with us now and forever. And he promised that so much and believed in that promise and wanted to make true that promise so much that he sent his son to die for each and every one of us while we were sinners. While we weren't even asking for it yet. Because God does this not because we ask the right way or seek the right way or did enough good deeds. God does it because that's God. That's who he is. The God of everlasting love, of faithfulness, of gentleness. The God who forgives wickedness, rebellion, and sin. And praise God for such an amazing blessing. So what are we going to be asking for? What do we want? Do we want that God? Do we want those provisions? Do we want that change in our life, or are we going to settle for the things the world is offering that will never satisfy? That's what Jesus was asking the people listening then. And that's still the question for us today. And he says, if you ask, it's right there. If you seek, it's right in front of you. If you knock, the door will never be closed. So if you need to come to Jesus, if you need those good things in your life, we always have this opportunity, but the opportunity is always open to begin that relationship with him, to be cleansed of sin in baptism, and to walk with him each and every day. It's an amazing blessing, and one I'm so thankful to be able to share with so many. If that's you today who has any need, why don't you come while we stand and while we sing.